Good evening, you're watching the India Development Debate. I'm Tamanna Inamdar and welcome to the show this Friday evening. We have a very special show lined up for you as we wrap up a very newsy week. Letter wars have broken out with over 60 well-known personalities responding to the letter from 49 other well-known personalities who had asked the PM to take action against mob lynching earlier this week. Now, this fresh letter questions the intentions of those who penned the earlier one, even going as far as calling it a conspiracy. Now, earlier this week, we spoke to Aparna Sen on this very show. She was, of course, one of the signatories of the first letter, and we asked her the reasons behind writing that letter. Today, we get you the other side of the story, as I'm joined now by Swapan Dasgupta, one of the signatories on the second letter. He's also a Rajya Sabha member of Parliament nominated by the BJP. Welcome to the show, Mr. Dasgupta. Thank you for speaking with us. My first question to you is that the signatories of letter 1 said it wasn't political. They were speaking out as concerned citizens. Is your response political?
Well, I think it was a political letter. It was a political intervention. It's a political intervention which fits in with more or less the entire intervention which has been going on from May 2014, ever since Mr. Modi came to power. And I think the basic idea behind that letter was to highlight certain incidents and from there extrapolate and suggest that India is in the throes of a wave of intolerance, a wave of anti-democratic sentiments where people cannot really express themselves any longer, and that it's a great fear that swamps India. To my mind, that is a gross caricature. It is a reflection, it's only a partial reflection. It takes recourse to very selective indignation. The outrage is very, very selective, and it is principally directed at discrediting Modi politically. And it's merely that. It follows from what the Award Wapsi movement of 2015 set out to do. And it's basically in line with that. There may be, I do confess, individuals among the signatories who are perhaps not that intensely political. But if you take into account the larger inspiration, I think it's entirely political in nature. And I think it's got to be met with a political response too.
Yes, but the political response goes so far as to call this very writing of the letter a conspiracy, where in the same breath you say the freedom of speech has never been available as much as it is today. Do you think it's fair to call it a conspiracy that these 49 individuals got together to write a letter to the Prime Minister?
Conspiracy in a sense that it is politically motivated. Maybe a word politically motivated would have been a better expression of the whole thing. But a conspiracy is in the sense that it follows a particular pattern. It follows a particular pattern of letter writing, petition writing, which we have seen going on since 2014. And this is exactly in line with that. It's a pattern.
So, you know, in your letter, which responds to the earlier one, all the signatories list out a number of instances and ask the earlier lot that why don't you comment about this and why don't you comment about that, what some people call whataboutery. I want to ask you, Mr. Dasgupta, if an individual chooses not to comment or for whatever reason doesn't comment on incident A, does it mean they no longer have the right to talk about incident B?
No, they have not lost the right. They have every right to comment on whatever they want to. And that they have chosen to comment on certain things is itself very indicative. That they haven't chosen to comment on a lot of things is also very indicative. And I would draw your attention to their inexplicable and perhaps not very inexplicable silence on a large number of things. If you notice, most of the signatories in the first letter are from West Bengal. And I think you will notice that they have been remarkably silent on the wave of violence which has actually engulfed Bengal right from last year when the Panchayat elections took place, and it continued during the general elections and subsequently. And when they put forward the idea that Jai Shri Ram is somehow a provocative slogan, I think it's important to remind them that people have been murdered in West Bengal for actually uttering the words Jai Shri Ram. And I think it would be helpful if some of these enlightened people took those into account to have a more rounded view of what they think is the contemporary reality.
Well, your answer actually brings me to my next question, Mr. Dasgupta, and you rightly point out that a lot of signatories in letter 1 hail from West Bengal. Well, so do a lot of signatories from letter 2. So should we be looking at this letter war as an ideological war in the context of the politics that we're seeing right now in the state of West Bengal?
I think that would be a reasonably fair assumption in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Because I think what we are seeing in West Bengal is a type of churning. Unfortunately, this churning has turned out to be extremely violent in terms of churning. What we are seeing in West Bengal is that a particular left Trinamool ecosystem is somehow crumbling, or certainly has been under strain. And this, to my mind, represents an attempt by those people to regain the intellectual upper hand in this battle. So I think you must locate it within the context of a waging battle in West Bengal, which is centered on politics.
You know, in this letter, Mr. Dasgupta, you and the other signatories say that the people who have written to the Prime Minister about lynching have heaped their scorn and are looking down upon the followers of Lord Ram. Now, I spoke with Ms. Aparna Sen on this very program earlier this week, and she said very clearly that they have no problem with the chant of Jai Shri Ram. They have a problem with murder or lynching taking place and the victims being forced to say Jai Shri Ram. They in fact say that they are also followers of Lord Ram. So is that a fair comment for you to make in that letter?
I am flattered to note that a lot of them are actually now become self-confessed followers of Lord Ram. But in any case, it's not, the issue is not that. The point is that Jai Shri Ram is a legitimate slogan which are used by people in different contexts. And to suddenly call this an aggressive war cry of Hindus and to demean it is, to my mind, completely wrong. And I think it offends a lot of people. There are times when a certain slogan, when you say Bharat Mata Ki Jai, and someone does something wrong, doesn't mean the slogan itself is wrong. So, I think for them to lump the whole thing together and say that Jai Shri Ram is a provocative war cry of the Hindus is offensive, to my mind at least. I will say Jai Shri Ram, and I reserve the right to say Jai Shri Ram, just as they have the right not to say Jai Shri Ram. But I don't think they have the right to demean it.
No, so which is what they say. But anyway, let me ask you something, Mr. Dasgupta, as you know, you're a Rajya Sabha member of Parliament, a noted journalist. So apart from who's written what in whichever letter, the basic issue and the instances that have come to light in the media, mainstream media, newspapers, etc., of violence taking place and the victims being forced to say Jai Shri Ram. Don't you yourself find this alarming?
Look, any criminal incident which leads to coercion, which leads to violence, which leads to murder is absolutely reprehensible regardless of who it is perpetrated by. And whichever slogan is used in this context does not fit in. The larger issue is the criminality. And I think we must look at it, that criminal incidents must be treated as criminal incidents. And I think we must be pretty indiscriminate about it. See criminal incidents for what they are, not try to put a political gloss to it.
You know, I have a suggestion, Mr. Dasgupta. Now, the letters have been written and, you know, these buckets have been made of pro and anti-celebrities. Why don't you guys talk to each other? Why don't these intellectuals or these groups of intellectuals reach out and have a conversation instead of this very polarizing narrative that we're seeing right now in the country? Don't you think that would be a better idea?
I think that's a very welcome suggestion. I think people need to have conversations. And I think this sort of ideological polarization, whereby some people are considered untouchable by the others, is to my mind wrong. I think in India there's a great diversity of opinion. And I'm glad there's a diversity of opinion, because in India, which is, it's a very large country, and I think we must have various strands of thought competing with each other. And I think the civilized discourse is really part of it. Of course, I believe that, writing 2 letters is equally a civilized form of exchange. There's nothing offensive about it. So, but I take your larger point. Yes, I think rather than shun each other, people should be talking to each other.
Yeah. Well, I hope something positive comes out of this letter war and letter controversy that we've seen. Maybe you can lead the charge. Thank you so much, Mr. Dasgupta, for speaking with us this evening.